Добрый день, Major. Rad videt. Our French intelligence confirms the Allied forces are developing two vehicle weapons. The phase transport and the chrono tank. It is not in the Soviet interest that either of these weapons becomes operational. Do what you must. Steal the prototypes. Use the prototypes against the Allies. And keep them from using that chrono tank. Iditai, go on.
Reinforcements have arrived.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Cannot deploy here. New construction options. Building. Construction complete. New construction options. Building. Unable to comply. Building in progress. Unable to comply. Building in progress. Construction complete. New construction options. Building.
Vehicle report. Affirmative.
Unable to comply. Building in progress. Unable to comply. Building in progress. Construction complete. Building. Unable to comply. Building in progress. Construction complete. Building. Unable to comply. Building in progress. Insufficient
Yes, sir.
funds. Construction complete.
Affirmative.
Building. Our base is under attack. Preparing. Unable to comply. Building in progress. Construction complete. Building. New construction options. Building. On hold. Cancel. Our base is under attack. Unit ready. Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Reporting. Acknowledged.
Construction complete. Our base is under attack. Unit ready. Building.
Reporting.
New
Affirmative.
construction options. Insufficient funds.
Vehicle reporting.
On hold. Cancel. Building. Unit ready. Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Reporting. Acknowledged. Report. Affirmative. Vehicle reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Yes, sir.
Building.
Vehicle report. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Construction complete.
Report.
Base is
Affirmative.
under attack.
Acknowledged. Waiting orders.
Building. Unit ready.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Prepare.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Unit ready. Building. Insufficient funds. Our base is under attack.
Vehicle
Construction
reporting.
complete.
Vehicle report. Affirmative.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready.
Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
On hold. Building. Construction complete. Unit ready. Building. New construction options.
Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Affirmative. Vehicle reporting. Affirmative. Vehicle report. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Construction complete.
Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Building. Unit lost.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Building.
Reporting. Vehicle reporting. Acknowledged.
Unit ready. Building. Our base is under attack. Repairing.
Reporting. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Reporting.
Insufficient
Acknowledged.
funds. Unit ready. Building. Construction complete. Building.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Construction complete. Unit ready. Our base is under attack. Building. Repairing. On hold. Cancel.
Reporting.
Construction complete. New construction options. Building. Building.
Yes, sir. Vehicle reporting. Affirmative. Vehicle reporting.
ready.
Comrade.
Building.
Affirmative.
Insufficient
Reporting.
funds.
Acknowledged.
Construction complete. New construction
Yes, sir.
options.
Affirmative.
Unit ready. Building. Building. On hold. Unit ready.
Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Repairing. Unit ready. Building.
Vehicle
Insufficient
reporting.
funds.
Acknowledged.
Repairing. Unit prepared.
Reporting. Acknowledged. Vehicle reporting.
Unit
Vehicle
ready.
reporting. Affirmative.
Building. Unit ready. Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Vehicle report. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Vehicle report. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Reporting.
Naval unit lost. Naval unit lost.
Affirmative.
Naval unit lost. Building.
Awaiting
On hold.
orders. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Acknowledged.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready. Building.
Affirmative.
Building.
Acknowledged.
Insufficient funds. On hold. Cancel.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Vehicle reporting. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Base is
Affirmative.
under attack. Prepare.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Our base is under attack.
Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Reporting. Affirmative. Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Reporting. Affirmative. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Ready and waiting. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Insufficient funds.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Lost.
Acknowledged. Ready and waiting. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Construction complete.
Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Reporting. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Lost.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit
Affirmative.
lost.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Awaiting orders. Acknowledged.
On hold. Unit
Awaiting
lost.
affirmative.
Insufficient funds.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Awaiting acknowledged. Vehicle report. Affirmative. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit repaired.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit repaired.
Affirmative.
Repairing.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit
Affirmative.
repaired.
Yes, sir.
Repairing.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Awaiting
Unit repaired.
acknowledged.
Repairing. Building. Unit repaired. Repairing. Unit ready.
Reporting.
Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Unit repaired.
Yes, sir.
Repaired.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Awaiting or affirmative.
Unit
Wait,
ready.
affirmative, acknowledged. Affirmative.
Awaiting or affirmative. Awaiting or affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Reporting. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Vehicle reporting. Acknowledged. Vehicle reporting. Acknowledged. Awaiting affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Reporting. Affirmative. Vehicle report. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit
Reporting.
ready. Building.
Affirmative.
Unit
Yes, sir.
repaired. Repairing. On hold. Cancel.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Building. Unit repaired. Repairing. Unit
Yes, sir.
ready.
Affirmative.
Building. Unit repaired. Repairing. Unit ready. Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Reporting. Acknowledged. Comrade.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Awaiting orders. Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Prepare.
Vehicle reporting. Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit
Acknowledged.
ready. Building.
Acknowledged.
Unit prepared.
Affirmative.
Insufficient
Waiting
funds.
orders. Comrade.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit ready. Building.
Awaiting orders.
Waiting order.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Reporting.
Reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Insufficient funds.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Reporting.
Vehicle report.
Affirmative. 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 Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge.
Lost.
Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Acknowledge.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Construction
Acknowledged.
complete.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Primary
sir.
building selected. Unit ready. Building. Insufficient funds.
Awaiting orders.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit ready. Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit ready. Building.
Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Affirmative. Affirmative.
Building.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged.
Insufficient
Affirmative.
funds.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Vehicle reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Orders.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Waiting orders. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Comrade? Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit
Acknowledged.
Building.
Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Waiting order. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Mission accomplished.